Hello everyone, today we'll be checking out the Gamesir Cyclone 2. This is Gamesir's Pro controller with an asymmetric layout, an alternative to the Tarantula Pro. The dongle is very small, and the dock seems high quality. Much better than the one that comes with the Tarantula Pro. Also, the base is made of metal. Ergonomically, the Cyclone 2 is very similar to the Gamesir G7 SE. But this one works wirelessly, and it doesn't have the lock mechanism in the back buttons. The face buttons feels great. There's a good travel distance, good resistance, and they won't sink flat with the shell. The analog sticks has a metal shaft and anti-friction rings. And it's also removable. The start, capture, select, and M buttons have mechanical switches. But the home button is a membrane button. The Dpad is fully mechanical. The shutter buttons are very smooth and responsive. And here you have Hall effect triggers, with a trigger lock inside the trigger itself. You can flip the trigger lock here and activate a digital button press. The mechanism is very solid, and you can press the button really hard, it won't break anything. The back buttons are very big, and they're easy to press in any region. With the increased size, these back buttons are super comfortable to press. The trigger lock mechanism is a bit hard to change. You won't be able to switch it very often during gameplay. But the construction is very solid. This little lever never touches the controller shell, even when you try to force it. The dock has a slot for the dongle, and you can plug the cable for your computer on the other side. Attaching the controller is fairly easy. When connected, the LEDs will indicate the charging process. There's also an LED on the base. When fully charged, the LEDs will turn off, and if you pick the controller up, it will automatically turn on. When paired, the RGB lights will also turn on. Here's how it looks in a dark environment. In the black edition, the RGB lights won't spread much around the controller, but in the white one, it looks much more cooler. Not only that, but the Dpad is golden and the anti-friction rings are orange. In my opinion, it has a better color scheme. There's also 4 different RGB modes. The RGB brightness can be adjusted as well. Speaking about connections, there are 4 connection modes. The switch mode with a red light, the D input mode with a yellow light, and the DualShock mode with a blue light. But I noticed that every connection mode is detected by your smartphone. The switch mode shows as a Pro controller, the D input mode shows as Cyclone 2, and the DualShock mode shows as wireless controller. But the X input mode shows as this game pair mode, and in this mode the smartphone cannot connect to the controller. Turns out that the X input mode is only compatible with the dongle or with a wired connection. There is no way to have X input through a Bluetooth connection. So if you're using it on PC with Bluetooth, you'll have to use the DualShock, Switch Pro or D input modes. And this is kinda bad because some games are not compatible with the DualShock 4 or the Switch Pro controller. So if you take your controller to a friend's house and forget to bring the dongle, you will have to use a wired connection. But the DualShock mode is not entirely bad, as it supports the gyro sensors. Testing on the Switch, it can wake up the console. The button layout will be swapped, but you can reverse it with this combination. And it has gyro controls in the switch mode too. Unfortunately, the rumble is a regular rumble. And you can change the rumble intensity too. The analog sticks are great, just like the Tarantula Pro. There's a small dead zone in the center. There's no cardinal snapping. And the circularity is perfect. The resolution is pretty big, with around 1200 steps. And speaking about the Dpad, you cannot hit the diagonals by pressing only on one direction. But this time, the diagonals are not hard to hit. You just have to move your thumb a little bit closer to the center. And the diagonals are very consistent in all four corners. Much different than what we had on the Tarantula Pro. And there's a pivot in the center preventing you from hitting all four directions. Here's the trigger behavior. And you also have software hair triggers. There's a turbo function with 3 different speeds. And there's a no dead zone mode for the sticks. But pay attention that when you activate the no dead zone mode, the circularity will not be perfect. The back buttons are very easy to remap on the go. And you can configure macros too. Additionally, you can have 4 profiles with different configurations. Speaking of input delay, this is one of the fastest controllers out there with a wired connection. And checking the test results, it can get even lower than 2 milliseconds. It is compatible with the Gamesir app for the smartphone, but you cannot configure anything through the app, you can just test the controller buttons. For more configurations, you'll have to use the Gamesir Connect app on PC. Here you can change the polling rate. Here's the button configurations. And you can map mouse and keyboard keys. Here's the configurations for the sticks. And there's a simulated gyro option too. Here's the trigger configurations. You can adjust the vibration. And the RGB mode, which is fully customizable. There's also this option here which will make the RGB lights react to the audio on the headphone jack. Moving to the teardown, there are 6 screws on the back and 1 hidden screw under the sticker. The screws has the torque shape. And strangely enough, this controller is assembled backwards. The D-pad also has a spring in the center to make it more snappy. The face buttons use scale switches. And the D-pad uses button clicky switches. They feel just like a mouse switch. The Stics uses the same TMR modules from the Tarantula Pro. The triggers have metal pivots. And to proceed, we have to remove more screws here. On the other side, the back buttons uses this kind of switches which are much more reliable. The rumble motors are easy to disconnect too if you want to reduce the weight. And the battery has 860 milliamps. And here's how the trigger stoppers mechanism works. Here's a cool angle of the back buttons. And here's how it looks when turned on without the shell. And for my final thoughts, the Cyclone 2 is amazing. Everything in this controller feels super polished, from the sticks to the buttons to the D-pad to the triggers, the back buttons, the usability, everything is amazing. And if I had to complain about one thing, is the lack of X input via Bluetooth mode. Other than that, this is a very solid controller. I definitely recommend it, and it's gonna be very high in the controller rankings that I'll release soon. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all of the future reviews coming soon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.